On red earth beside a slow river, I learned how secrets gnaw at a home like termites in a beam. My husband took a second wife in silence. I carried grief to our elders' circle. Their verdict stunned him and steadied me, like morning after a long storm. Clear, bright, fair. If this story moves you, please subscribe, like, and share to support more gentle folktales and community wisdom for everyone. Before dawn, our village sounds like a quiet garden. Roosters call from one yard, then answer from another. A soft wind brushes the fig trees. Somewhere, a mortar taps in a steady rhythm as someone pounds millet for breakfast. The river beyond our fields rolls and sighs, suturing the dark night to the pale morning. I rise when the star above the tall hill begins to fade, put my feet into cool sandals, and step onto the floor swept smooth with red earth. The air smells of smoke and damp wood and the clean, sweet notes of shea butter. I wash my face, tie my scarf, and light the small fire I laid the night before. Sparks lift and drift like tiny fireflies. In those days, my life with Sifu felt like a woven mat, strong, familiar, made by 4 hands. We rose together. We laughed over small things, like a goat's stubbornness, or the way the water jar made a tiny burp when it welcomed more water. If I folded his shirt just right, he would smile at his tidy bundle on the stool and say, "Your hands are magic, Nia." When the sun was high, he would return from the fields with dust on his ankles, and I would bring a cup, rinse his fingers, and watch the dust turn to lines of brown water, like rivers returning to the sea. Change arrived almost as softly as dew. It came as a new soap smell on his shirts. It came as a new tune in his whistling, one I did not know. At first I laughed at myself and pushed away small worries. Perhaps a trader sold him that soap. Perhaps a stranger sang that melody by the road, and it stuck in his mind. But then he began to stay longer in the fields, and he came home with eyes that looked past me for a heartbeat, as if he were listening to a voice that lived just beyond the wall. One evening, a thin silver bracelet caught a corner of the mat and tumbled under the stool. I retrieved it, thinking it was mine, but it was not. The metal was not like my bracelets. It was too sleek, too new, and too small for my wrist. I turned it in the fading light. It was like a sliver of moon captured and bent. "Whose is this?" I asked when he came home. He glanced too quickly and shrugged. "Maybe you dropped it," he said, though we both knew my bracelets were beaded and old. He ate without finishing and stepped out into the dusk, which lay along the ground like a sleeping cat. I could have shouted then, shouted my questions into the street, so that the mango tree would hear, so the neighbor's goat would hear, so the night would spit them back. Instead, I closed my mouth and placed the bracelet on a folded cloth. We have a saying in my mother's family: if a pot boils too fast, the stew goes thin. I made the fire breathe slowly and listened to it sing. Days passed. I watched. I measured our life like a careful gardener, not with suspicion, but with open eyes. I found a folded piece of cloth inside his bag, a strip of fine blue cotton, unlike the plain cloth we used. I smelled a scent of new oil on it, faint and sweet. When I asked him about the cloth, he smiled and said, "A friend paid me in cloth for help in the fields." He patted my shoulder and did not meet my eyes. At market, I saw a young woman near the spice baskets. Her headscarf was blue, and her eyes, set wide apart, had a sadness that wore a brave face. She laughed with her friend, but glanced often toward the path leading to the fields. She was new. I had not seen her before. I had a feeling, the kind that rests in your chest like a pebble you cannot swallow. I bought peppers and sorghum and walked home the long way, past the big baobab where the elders sit in afternoon shade and tell stories to children. The baobab holds many seasons in its trunk. It feels like a library made of time. I did not speak to Sefu that day. I did not ask. That evening, he said he would sleep at the far field to guard the maize from bush pigs. "The moon is thin tonight," he said. "The pigs creep close when the light is shy." He took the long-handled hoe and a gourd. I stood at the door and watched him stride past the line of neem trees, the dust lifting behind him in soft puffs, the last light catching on his cheekbones. He did not look back. I made a bed on the woven mat, alone, and listened to the chorus of insects. Sometimes the night sings like a cradle. Sometimes it sings like a bell that will not stop. It sang like a bell that night. I knew there was a secret somewhere between the maze and the moon, and it had Sefu's name on it. In the morning, I went to see Mama Tia, who is the midwife and the keeper of small healing leaves. Her compound smells of warm palm oil and boiled herbs. Children run in and out, healthy and noisy. She greeted me with a hug that felt like I had set down a load. She poured millet porridge into 2 bowls and put one in my hands. We sat in the shade of her big mango tree. The tree bears sweet fruit every year, and its shade feels like a good old song. I told her what I had seen: the bracelet, the cloth, the new scent, the long nights away. I did not say his name until the end. When I did, my voice went small and thin. She listened without interrupting, her hands folded, her eyes kind and bright. When I finished, she said, "A lie has speed, but truth has endurance." She tilted her head toward the road. "If you run, the lie will make you tired. If you walk with steady steps, truth will catch up with both of you." "I do not want to be a watcher in my own home," I said. "But I also do not want to be unfair," she nodded. "Fairness is a house where all doors open. If he has entered another house, the village must know which doors he opened and how. We are a people with ways. We do not throw stones, but we do not swallow silence when it hurts the throat." I thanked her, my chest lighter and heavy at once. On the way home, I passed the small shrine of stones near the old fig tree. The stones were warm under the sun. A child had placed a bouquet of wildflowers there, little yellow bells that looked like drops of sun. Someone had loved something and hoped for a blessing. I touched the edge of the flat stone and whispered, "Please guide my steps," though I did not know who was listening: the stones, the wind, my own breath. 2 days later, I discovered the shape of the secret. It did not come from Sefu's mouth. It came like a ripple in water when a fish moves and you do not see the fish, but you know it is there. A cousin whispered to a sister, and the sister's friend told my neighbor. On that line of whispers, the news came to me. There had been a small ceremony in the next village near the old avocado tree. Not many people, just enough. A traveling preacher who sometimes officiated quick marriages had been passing through. There were 2 witnesses. There were 2 cloths, blue and green, tied as a sign. There was a young woman with wide-set eyes, the same I had seen near the spice baskets. Her name was Layla. The man had brought a gift of salt and oil and a promise to return with a larger bride price later. My hands went cold as if I had dipped them into the river. I sat on the stool by the door until the sun moved across the yard. When Sefu came home, I did not accuse. I set water for him and watched him rinse the dust from his fingers. He looked up once, and in that look, I saw the truth gathering in his throat like a storm. He began to speak. He started with words I already knew. "You know I have worked hard," he said. "You know I want a big family. The years are passing. Some men take a second wife with their first wife by their side, blessing the union, guiding the house. I feared you would say no. I thought if I did it quietly, and then showed you that I could provide, you would accept." The fire in the hearth crackled and went flat. Something inside me cracked too. "You feared I would say no," I repeated. "So you took me out of the decision that is my life?" My voice was steady because it had built that steadiness all morning. He winced. "I did not want to hurt you," he said. He reached as if to take my hand, then set his hand on his knee. "I thought it would be easier if I learned from voices in the market?" I asked. He closed his eyes. "I am sorry," he said. Sorry is a soft word when the wound is fresh. It binds later, when time has cleaned the cut. Then it helps. Not at the beginning. I stood. I did not shout. I did not throw his shirt into the yard. I said, "Our people have a way for these things. You chose another way." I took the blue strip of cloth from the basket and laid it on the floor between us. "Tomorrow," I said, "we will walk to the elders. We will put our feet in the path that holds all our feet." His shoulders sagged. He gave a small nod. He did not argue. He had the face of a man who sees a big wave coming in and knows his small boat cannot outrow it. The next day, The air smelled of rain before rain. The sky wore a veil of silver. We walked side by side to the big baobab at the village center. Children ran past us, and a calabash seller called out her price with a cheerful voice. The baobab stood with its thick arms out, as if to hold all the stories of all our days. Beneath it, 3 low stools waited, and a rolled mat lay ready. Elder Omari sat already on the left stool. His beard was white and trimmed, his eyes deep as old wells. Mama Tia stood with a calabash of water and greeted us softly. Elder Suleiman, who knows the land boundaries better than anyone, came from the right with the county ledger wrapped in cloth. People gathered around, not too close, respecting the privacy of public matters. They might have been drawn by the smell of rain or by the gravity in our steps. This is how a village holds a heart that is heavy. It stands nearby, quiet but present. Before we spoke, a shadow moved from the far side of the yard, and Layla walked into the circle. She wore a blue scarf. Her hands shook as she greeted the elders. She did not look at me at first. Then she did, and her wide eyes were full of a complex sorrow that had many rooms. "You came," I said softly. She nodded. "I did not know," she whispered. "I thought—" She stopped and pressed her lips together. "We will all speak," Elder Omari said. "But first, water." He poured a slow stream from the calabash into 3 small bowls. Words like to travel on water. They do not like dust. He handed each of us a bowl. My hand was steady. I felt the cool rim and the smooth weight. I looked at Layla. Her hand trembled. She steadied it and gave me the briefest glance of gratitude. The elders gathered themselves and set the mat in the center. "We will meet properly tomorrow," Elder Omari said. "Today we gather the threads. Tomorrow we weave the cloth." He looked at Seifu. "We ask that you sleep in the men's guest hut tonight." He looked at me and Layla. "We ask that you eat with family and rest your minds. No one will touch this matter with rough hands. We will not turn a family into a market show. Do you agree?" I nodded. Layla nodded. Seifu's nod was heavier, like a sack being set down. A low roll of thunder sounded from the hills. Soft, distant thunder. Birds shifted in the fig tree. We returned home separately, the village holding us in its gentle net of watchfulness. That night the rain came. It began with a soft tick-tick on the roof, then grew into a steady drumming that filled the spaces where words might have been. I lay on the mat with my hand on my chest, feeling my heart beat. I asked the night a question that has no short answer. How do you make whole what was broken in a place you love? In the morning, the soil smelled like warm bread. Rain beads clung to every leaf, making our small world look like a treasure box. My dress brushed the wet grass as I walked slower than I wanted, slower than my worry. The elders sat under the baobab, the mat rolled out. The village breathed in and out around us. A quiet drum heartbeat sounded from somewhere near the far compound, comforting like a grandfather's hum. "Quiet drum heartbeat. Come," Elder Omari said. "Sit with us. Today we will ask our questions. Today we will listen." We came with clean faces and covered heads. The elders asked us to remove our shoes and step onto the mat. The mat felt cool and firm against my bare heels, woven tight by skilled hands. The pattern was simple, brown and cream, but in it, I saw the way a community holds a story. Line by line, crossing and crossing, each strand dependent on the others. Elder Omari began. He held the county ledger, not opened yet, as if to say, "We are a people of words and of written marks." He did not lecture. His voice flowed like the river when it thinks, slow and clear. "We are gathered," he said. "A house is tender when it shifts. We will keep it from falling. We will make the ground firm again. We do this not by anger, but by eyes that do not blink at the truth. We have ways for a man who seeks a second wife. He must speak first to the wife in his house. He must tell his reason. He must show he can be fair in time, in shelter, and in respect. He must gather his people and hers. We bless what is honest and strong. We do not bless what is hidden." He looked at Seifu. "Is it true you made a marriage in the next village without your wife's knowledge?" Sefu's mouth worked as if chewing bitter leaves. "It is true," he said, voice low. "Why did you do it?" Elder Suleiman asked. His eyes were gentle but did not drift. "We will hear your reasons whether we agree or not. Speak as if your own mother is listening." Sefu swallowed. "I was afraid," he said. "I wanted more children. I feared time. Some men told me, if your wife hesitates, do it and make it right later. I thought I could do both, bring honor to my home and give myself peace." He looked at me then. "I am ashamed. I did not trust the strength we had." They nodded. They did not rush to reply. Then Elder Omari turned to Layla. "Child," he said, though she was not a child, "what did you know when you tied your scarf to this man's hand?" Layla's chin lifted a little. Her voice was soft and clear. "He told me he had the blessing of his house," she said. "He said his wife was quiet and kind and would accept in time. He told me we would do the big ceremony later with the elders and bring proper gifts. He spoke like a man who had already walked through the door. I believed him. My aunt believed him. She is here." A small, sturdy woman stepped forward and bowed. "I am Auntie Sade," she said. "We asked him 2 times, 'Are your people with you?' He said yes so easily that we did not think to ask again." She spread her hands. "Perhaps we should have. But a guest can be a pocket for mischief or for kindness. We chose to see kindness." Mama Tia stepped forward with the calabash again. She poured water for each of us. Me, Sefu, Layla. She also poured for Auntie Sade. Elder Omari said, "We will ask each person to hold water while speaking. It reminds us that words should be as clear as water. If your hand shakes, we will not call you a liar. We will call you human, but we will notice and take care." I held the bowl. The water's surface held the sky like a small lake. I told my story. I did not add vinegar to it. I kept it simple. A bracelet, a cloth, a new smell, a change of eyes. I told them the truth of how my chest felt like a door someone opened in the night without knocking. When I finished, I set the bowl down and watched the light tremble in its surface. One drop slid down the lip and fell to the mat. It darkened the straw a little, then disappeared. Tears and water have the same habits. Layla spoke next, then Sefu again. Words filled the air, but they did not turn into noise. They rose and fell like a respectful chorus. When we paused, the river's voice came from beyond the fields, low and patient. When we rested, a bird hopped from one low branch to another and laughed, as if to remind us that life keeps moving, even when a house slows. The elders asked careful questions. Where were you on that day? What did you promise to whom? Whose money passed and when? Their questions were not traps. They were stepping stones so no one would slip. At one point, Elder Suleiman unrolled the county ledger and made new marks. He wrote down the names: Nia, wife; Sefu, husband; Leela, woman who claims marriage; Auntie Sade, witness. He wrote the date of the small ceremony with the traveling preacher and the 2 witness names that Auntie Sade had brought. He wrote the gifts promised and the gifts given. He wrote the place, the avo tree clearing, and the time, late afternoon, when the shadow of the avocado tree points toward the road. It felt like watching a map being drawn, a map that led out of a tangle. Some of this can be corrected, Elder Omari said. Some of this must be repaired. Some of this cannot be undone, like a bell rung in the morning, but we can choose how we use the bell's sound. He looked then to the crowd, which had grown, and then back to us on the mat. Let us take counsel of wisdom bigger than any one of us, he continued. Wisdom is like a baobab tree. No one person can embrace it. At that, the circle of elders widened. Old Auntie Hawa, who can slice truth like a thin mango but do it kindly, joined. 2 young men who had married last year joined too, to learn and perhaps to say, "This is how we will not do it." The council became a garden where each plant gave a scent. They asked if anyone else had knowledge with its own weight. A boy raised his hand shyly. He had been asked to carry a basket to the avocado clearing and then to return home. He said he had seen only a short cloth tying and a prayer. He had seen no exchange of the second set of gifts. The elders wrote that down. We broke for a small meal as the sun climbed. The air warmed and smelled of hot earth and cooked yams. People shared what they had brought: ground nuts, roasted plantain, cassava cake. I ate a few bites and felt my body remember that it was a body and needed care. Layla sat beside her aunt, looking at the dust on her toes, then at the sky. Sefu stood apart and spoke to no one. He glanced at me once, and I looked away. When the council resumed, they called a man from the next village, a quiet one with careful eyes. He spoke to confirm that he had seen a traveling preacher take their vows beneath the avocado tree. He had a brown leather book, the man said. He tied their hands with a ribbon, blue then green. He spoke of faithfulness, but he did not ask if the man's first wife agreed. Perhaps he assumed. Perhaps he wanted to catch a road that would soon pull him away. He shrugged. We are each responsible for the doors we open. By late afternoon, the pile of words we had made stood like a stack of wood ready for the night fire. The elders did not rush to light it. They asked us to sleep one more night. We have heard your voices, Elder Omari said. We will carry them to our sleep. In the morning, we will return with a verdict. We ask all three of you to remain calm and to speak to each other only through an elder tonight. This is to keep the house safe from careless words. I went home with my cousin and poured water over my head, letting it run like a small waterfall. The sun was low. The river whispered. My cousin held my hand. You have walked well, she said. You did not shout. You did not swallow your pain. You let our people do what our people can do. Night fell. In the men's guest hut, I imagined Sefu on a narrow bed on a rough mat, listening to his own thoughts like cattle hooves in dry grass. In her aunt's yard, Layla likely lay awake too. I did not hate her. I did not think of her as a thief. She was a second figure in a picture made by someone else's hands. Yet the picture included me, and that was the trouble. I slept and dreamed of water. In my dream, I stood in a shallow stream. Pebbles rolled under my heels. The water was clear enough that I could see my toes. The stream divided around a large, smooth stone and then joined itself again. I woke with a feeling like a thread, a small sense that things might yet find their right shapes, even if not the old shapes. A light breeze met me on my way to the baobab the next morning. Elders were already seated, and the circle had thickened with more faces, but the voices were soft. It felt like the village had put on its best manners. Children sat under the fig tree in a tidy group, and a mother hushed a baby with a gentle sway. The sky was clean and blue. The sunlight on the baobab's bark made it look like the tree's skin was woven of gold fibers. We took our places, bare feet on the mat. The elders did not make us wait long. We are ready, Elder Omari said, his hands folded. We will give our verdict in 3 parts, because remedy has different faces for different mistakes. The hush that fell was so complete that a lizard's tiny feet could be heard scudding across a sun-warmed wall. My mouth went dry. I placed my hands in my lap and felt the beads in my bracelet, worn smooth by years of days. The first part is about truth, Elder Omari said. The second is about fairness. The third is about dignity. He looked at me, then at Sefu, then at Layla. He took a breath like a man who has lifted something heavy and now must lower it with care. Truth, he said. We declare that the secret tying under the avocado tree is not a full marriage in our community. It did not follow our ways. It was done without counsel, without the first wife's knowledge, and without the presence of the elders. It will not be recognized as a proper joining. The paper the traveling preacher may hold is a mark, but it is not ours. A murmur rose at the edges of the circle and then went quiet again. Layla's lips parted. Sefu's face drained of color and then flushed again. He opened his mouth with a small sound, then closed it. If he had expected a quick blessing to cover his secret, he now understood that we do not paint over cracks with bright colors and call a house strong. Fairness, Elder Omari continued. Though we do not recognize the undertree tying as a proper marriage, we do recognize that promises were spoken and reputations have been touched. We recognize that a woman left her home with a hope placed in a man's hands. We recognize that a first wife's heart has been burdened with a fear she did not earn. So we will not drop this matter as if it were a hot coal we are glad to see gone. We will place it carefully in a fire that can cook something good." He nodded to Elder Suleiman, who took the ledger and read from a page they had written on together. The ink curled in black lines like small vines. "Our verdict is this," he said, voice steady. "For 1 full season, 3 moons, Sefu will not live with either woman. He will stay in the men's guest hut and rise with the men to work. By day, he will labor on a work we choose, a new, wider footpath from the clinic to the river, with stepping stones for the rains. He will also carry water twice a week to the old widow's yards. He will do this not as punishment that shames loudly, but as a visible, humble work that says, 'I add to what I strained.'" Sefu's head snapped up. Shock traveled through his body like a sudden wind. He began to protest, but Elder Omari raised his hand. "Wait! The path is not long, but it is useful for many steps. Let your steps be useful. Let your sweat be a seal on your words." His voice was firm, not cruel. "During these 3 moons," Elder Suleiman continued, "the elders and both families will meet to speak of the future. At the end of this season, 2 paths are possible. The first, Nia and Sefu will remain married as one household, and Layla will be released with dignity, with gifts in compensation for the time and hope she gave. Those gifts will be a calf, 20 measures of grain, and a share in the profit of Sefu's next harvest. They will also be a written promise that Sefu will support her training as a seamstress or trader if she chooses that path. There will be no shame on her name. We will say, 'She came to us in good faith. She leaves with her head high.'" A stir of agreement moved through the circle, like a breeze through tall grass. Layla blinked and held her aunt's hand. "The second path," Elder Suleiman continued, "follows our allowed custom when carried with honesty and care. If and only if Nia freely agrees, and if and only if we see that Sefu has shown fairness in time, shelter, and respect, a proper public marriage between Sefu and Layla may be made after the 3 moons. That ceremony will be done under this tree, with both families and with the full bride price declared and paid. The first wife will stand as first wife, with her rights secured in writing. The order of knights, the division of money, and the care for any children will be recorded. If Nia does not agree, it will not be done. We will not drag her by words into a shape she does not accept." Now the shock on Sifu's face deepened into something like awe and shame mixed. He looked at me as if he had never seen me quite clearly before, as if I were a piece on the table that he had pushed aside, not understanding it was the heart of the house. He had hoped to make decisions alone. The elders had placed the most important choice in my hands, not as a weapon, but as a right. "Dignity," Elder Omari said, his voice soft and warm, like a blanket. "We speak this to all 3 of you. We will not let this matter make you enemies if you choose it not to. We ask all of you to speak with careful tongues. A house breaks first at the door of the mouth. We will have no songs in the night making fun of anyone. We will have no children taught to mock. We will have no visitors encouraged to gossip. If any of us hear such talk, we will pour sand on it." He looked around the circle, and many heads nodded, some with shame for past mistakes, some with relief that someone had said what needed saying. Auntie Hawa shifted and cleared her throat. "I will be watching," she said. People laughed a little, the right kind of laughter. Elder Omari set down the ledger and leaned forward. "There is one more note," he said. "If, at the end of 3 moons, Nia chooses to remain the only wife, Layla will return to her aunt's compound not as a cast-out, but as a friend of this house. We will say that the truth asked us to change our plans. We will not say that someone was bad. If at the end of 3 moons, Nia gives her assent for a second marriage, we will make sure the agreements for fairness are stronger than any rope we tie." The circle exhaled. The sound was like wind moving through leaves. Sefu bowed his head. He placed both palms on the mat and whispered, "I accept." His voice had the rough edge of a stone that had been rubbed on other stones. He did not look at me. He did not look at Layla. He stared at the mat where the pattern continued steadily, not caring about our small storms. I felt many things at once, a deep shake of anger, a deep bloom of relief, a tender gratitude that our people had a way for us to walk. and a brand new fear of my own choice. The doe in the forest must feel all these things when the hunter lowers his bow and sets down his arrows. She is not shot. She is not safe. She is free to choose the path, and each path has its shadows. We rose and bowed. People moved back slowly. Some faces were wet. Not with gossip pleasure, but with the kind of tears that humans release when they see fairness placed in a bowl and offered with 2 hands. During the first moon, Sefu worked on the path from the river to the clinic. The river loved him and hated him and loved him again. It forgave him on mornings when mist lay low, and his breath hung like a wool scarf in the air. It tested him on afternoons when the sun burned the back of his neck and the mud clung to his calves. Children came to watch and sometimes helped carry stones no heavier than their smiles. Old women sat under a tree and told stories and reminded him to drink water. He said little and built much. I watched, but not to punish him with my eyes. I watched to see what kind of man I had married return in the shape of the man he was now. He did not hide. He did not take a short path round the granary to avoid the men's guest hut. He lined up stones like a prayer. 1, 2, 3, level. 1, 2, 3, steady. Layla spent those weeks in her aunt's house, learning to set her hands not to waiting but to shaping. She joined the seamstress and helped cut cloth with long silver scissors that made a satisfying snick sound. The tailor, Mama Pele, taught her how to stitch a curve without puckering the fabric. She made a small bag for a child with a yellow bird embroidered on it. She smiled when she held it up, the first bright thing I had seen near her face in days. We did not avoid each other. We met at market and greeted. Once, we stood by the tomatoes and spoke like 2 women who found themselves carrying water from the same spring. There was an awkwardness like a door not used before, but it opened. "Do you hate me?" she asked finally, voice thin but steady. "I do not," I said, surprising myself with how true it felt. "I hate the way it was done. I am a woman like you. I do not wish to throw you to the ground just because I was in the house first." She nodded, and her eyes filled. "I was foolish," she whispered. "You were hopeful," I said. "Hope can be foolish when it is not paired with proof. But it is a beautiful foolishness. We must learn how to hold it in the light." We stood there with our baskets and the scent of tomatoes bright and green around us. And for a moment the market was a chapel and the baskets were our pews. I visited the elders twice in those weeks. Not to argue, but to seek wisdom on how to hold my own heart. Mama Tia placed a small stone in my palm one afternoon. "Carry this in your pocket today," she said. "When heat rises, hold it. Feel how it does not burn. Remember that you can be like this stone." "Is it wrong to be angry?" I asked. "It is wrong to let anger be your main name," she said. "Let it visit. Give it water. Do not give it the mat by the door." We had 2 gatherings to speak of the future. The elders listened more than they spoke. The first gathering took place at the edge of the path Sefu had made. He stood, dust on his legs, and answered their questions. "What have you learned?" Elder Omari asked. "That I broke my own house," he said. "And now I must do more than say sorry. I must build new steps for it." The second gathering took place in Mama Tia's yard, under the mango tree. We sat on stools, and the tree dropped a ripe mango at just the right moment, making all of us laugh like children. The laughter felt like a small river inside our chests. We spoke then of practical things. If I chose to remain the only wife, how would the gifts be delivered to Layla? When? Who would witness? If I agreed to a second marriage, how would we write the time and money? Where would each of us live? How would the children be cared for and named? As we spoke, I noticed the ants marching in a neat line near my toes, carrying crumbs bigger than themselves. Watching them gave me peace. They do their work without speeches. They carry, 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 until what is needed is done. By the end of the 3rd moon, the path from the clinic to the river was wide enough that even a cart with squeaky wheels could ride without wobbling. Flat stones lay like a careful poem. The first rains after that slid over them and did not wash them away. Old women clapped their hands when they walked without slipping. The nurse said, "Now even the woman in labor who lives at the far end can come safer." I watched Sefu stand a little taller when he heard that. I saw his eyes fill and then dry. On the last day of the season, we returned to the elders for the final choosing. The air was clear and crisp. The baobab stood like a patient grandfather with his arms open. The circle gathered again. We stepped onto the mat and my heart beat in my neck. The choice was mine, the elders had said. No hand would be forced. I had prayed and worked and cried and walked in circles under the fig tree at night. I had held the small stone. I had remembered Mama Tia's proverb that a lie moves fast but truth endures. I had watched truth come, not running, but walking steady, like an elder with a cane, not weak, but careful. It had arrived. It had sat down. It had poured itself a cup of water. I spoke first. I choose not to accept a second marriage, I said. The words felt like the flat stones under my feet, solid and level. I choose to remain the only wife in my house. I choose to welcome restoration, not a new wound. I do not make this choice to crush Layla. I make it to honor the vow I made and the life we already built. I also make it because my heart, though strong, is not a goat horn. It is not made to be bent into any shape without breaking. The circle was very quiet. The nurse at the clinic placed her hand over her chest. A child somewhere sighed. I turned then to Layla. I will walk with you as you leave this promise that was set on your head without a proper roof under it, I said. You will not leave empty. You will not leave alone. I will help deliver the grain and stand with you when you receive the calf. I will bring cloth and thread to your seamstress table. I will not be your sister in name, but I will be your sister in acts. Tears ran down Layla's face, clean paths on her cheeks. She nodded and placed her hand on her aunt's. Auntie Said whispered something into her ear. She smiled through her tears. Elder Omari's eyes were wet. So we seal it, he said, with these words, with these witnesses, with these steps already laid by weather and time. We seal it with this moment which we offer back to life, saying, make it good. He stood and came to us, placing his hands first on my head, then on Layla's, then on Seifu's. His hands were dry and warm, like bread fresh from the oven. He looked at Seifu. You will keep your promises, he said. Not because you fear a fine, though you will pay what is owed. You will keep them because this is what a man does when he is worth the name. Seifu's voice came, rough and steady. I will, he said. He turned to me, and for the first time in many weeks he met my eyes fully. I will spend the next years earning back respect, not by asking for it, but by walking in it. We marked a day for the gifts to be delivered. We wrote the promise for Layla's training and both families signed. We walked to the path and blessed it formally, though it needed no blessing more than the footprints that had already praised it. Layla stood at its edge and laughed through tears as the nurse's son ran a little race along the stones and did not fall. In the days that followed, word spread not of scandal, but of a decision walked out with steady feet. The calf for Layla was delivered on a morning when the sky was clear, its coat shining like wet coffee. She named it Gift. I carried a basket of thread and cloth to her table. She unrolled a piece of cloth with red blossoms on it and smiled. For a child's dress, she said. Red blossoms for a brave heart. Our home did not return to what it had been. How could it? But it did not break either. It shifted and settled like a house after an earthquake. We inspected the walls together and braced them where needed. Some nights were quiet, our words simple and ready. Some nights were slow and heavy. But there was a new pattern in our days, a pattern like the path's stones. Careful step, pause, then step. On mornings when I felt strong, I greeted Seifu with a gentle touch. On mornings when I did not, I greeted him with a nod. He learned to read both greetings with respect. A year later, Layla had a small, bright shop near the market sugar sellers. She hung dresses in her doorway so they caught the breeze like colorful flags. Children loved to run up and touch the red blossoms. She learned to keep the money book, neat and honest. She sometimes came to the clinic with her aunt to visit a friend who was a new mother. She greeted me before and after with no strange pause. We laughed once about how our market sells both salt and sweetness, and how life often hands us both in the same basket. One afternoon, as the dry season began to gild the grass, I passed the baobab with 2 pot lids in my hands. I heard a soft hum and looked up. Elder Omari sat alone under the tree, his head tilted, his eyes closed. He was humming a tune that sounded like walking. I bowed and would have moved on, but he opened his eyes and smiled. "How is your house?" he asked. "Standing," I said. "Stronger in some ways, changed in all ways," he nodded. "Houses are like people. They grow up." "I have sometimes felt like a guard at a gate," I said. "Sometimes I feel like the gate itself," he chuckled. "You are neither," he said gently. "You are the path. You are the way through. Others will walk on you sometimes, but you are also the one who decides where the stones are laid. Do not forget this." He picked up a small pebble and rolled it in his fingers. "We did what we could. We asked truth to sit with us. It came." I thought of his words for days. I ran them through my fingers like prayer beads. On a morning when fog rolled low and the river wore a scarf, I walked the footpath from the clinic to the water and placed my bare feet on the stones Sefu had set. They were cool and firm. A small boy carried a bucket past me and did not slip. An old woman leaned on my arm and carried her water surely. Their ordinary grace felt like a blessing. It is through such quiet, many-footed moments that justice makes a home in a village. 2 years later, a new sign appeared above Layla's shop. Birdsong Tailor. The letters were painted by the teacher's son, neat and curved. Below the sign, a little bell hung. It rang when the door opened, a cheerful chirp. I stood outside and listened to it sing as people came and went. On the day she hung that sign, she wore the blue scarf she had first worn under the avocado tree, but now it meant something else. It no longer meant a secret or a rush. It meant craft. It meant a steady future, built with hands and a clean book. Sometimes people ask me now, when the moon is bright and the young ones sit near for a story, how we kept our house from burning when a secret lit a fire on our doorstep. I tell them we used water. We used words poured carefully. We used the big shade of the baobab, the elders' patient eyes, the path of our people's ways. We used the proverb that says truth may walk with a cane, but it will arrive. We used another proverb that says wisdom is too wide for one pair of arms, so we used many arms. And they ask, was he truly shocked? I smile. Yes. He thought he could carry his own gavel. He thought the court would be his heart alone. Instead, he found that the court belongs to all of us, and that its verdict would ask him to build, not to boast. He found that the choice would sit in the hands of the woman he had tried to move aside. He found that justice can both sting and heal, like medicine boiled from bitter leaves. We sit then in the early evening as light fits itself gently into the folds of the day. The fire is kind to our faces. The night wind is like a friend's hand on the shoulder. Soft night wind. I tell the children that decisions made with wisdom do not always make everyone happy at once, but they plant a harvest that grows for years. I tell them that a village with a good baobab and good elders is rich, even if its coin is few. I tell them that my heart is still my heart, and that it beats with a steady, grateful rhythm. When I walk home from such evening gatherings, I pass the path and touch the top of one of the stones. It is smooth from feet, warm from sun, and sometimes cool from rain. My fingers know every chip. I think of all the souls that have pressed it down. Feet of men who work, feet of women who carry, short feet of children who hop from stone to stone and laugh. I think, this is how we hold each other when something breaks. We stand together. We lay stones. We do not allow secrets to become walls. We turn them into lessons you can walk on. Back at my door, I bend to pick up the small stone Mama Tia gave me long ago. It sits on the windowsill now, a simple, patient thing. I turn it in my hand and feel its cool center. I breathe and open the door and step inside. My house smells of cooked yam and roasted plantain. The evening is quiet and close. I feel the old ache still sometimes, yes, but alongside it grows a calm so rooted that even the winds of memory do not move it much. The night holds us without judgment. Somewhere, at the tailor's shop, the little bell rings as someone enters, bringing into the small space the dust of the road and the news of the day. The moon rises like a bowl of milk poured into the sky. The river sighs. A goat coughs. A baby fusses, then quiets. The song of our village is not perfect. It is made of many notes, some sharp, some sweet. But it is ours, and in it I hear the lesson that came on the feet of elders. Fairness can be firm like a path and soft like evening. Truth can be gentle as a stream and strong as a tree. And love. Love can heal like the slow light that comes after a storm, silver at first, and then gold, washing all the roofs with morning.